If you've been stuck in the same trophy range for weeks, losing games you should have won, or constantly running into players who seem way better than you, it's not because of matchmaking, levels, or luck. It's because you're making small, hidden mistakes that most Clash Royale players don't even realize they're making. So today, I'll be breaking down the 17 things you're doing wrong, and more importantly, how to fix them instantly. Tip number 1. Never go first unless your deck requires early pressure. Let them make their first move unless your deck is one of those that literally needs early chip damage like Hog, Miner, or Goblin Barrel decks. If you're using a heavier win condition like the Giant, Golem, or the Mega Knight, dropping it first is an instant invitation for your opponent to punish the opposite lane and take full control. In single elixir time, heavy decks get punished brutally because you simply don't have the elixir to defend properly, which makes things very hard for the beatdown player. Playing the tank behind the tower in single elixir time only works if you know you're gonna tower trade for sure and potentially go for 3 crowns. But this is only applicable for a specific kind of heavier beatdown deck. So in general, it's best to save your important cards so you don't get thrown off guard by your opponent. I've seen so many players lose the entire game in the first 20 seconds because they place a tank or an important card at the back without even checking cycle. So the best general tip is only drop your heavy cards when you know you're up in elixir or when you've baited out their main punish tool. Tip number 2. You're defending with the wrong cards and losing trades. I see this constantly all the time. Someone uses a 5 elixir bowler to defend a 2 elixir berserker or use a 5 elixir wizard to kill a goblin barrel. These are horrible trades that drain your elixir and instantly put you behind. Efficient defense means using the cheapest card that still stops the threat, not using the card that you're most comfortable with. I've watched players burn 10 elixir to stop a tiny 5 elixir push and then get steamrolled when they have nothing left. So what's the general tip here? Before placing a card, ask yourself, what's the cheapest answer that works here? Learning this mindset alone will make you climb faster than upgrading any card will. Tip number 3. You're ignoring proper defensive placements and losing for free. Most losses at mid ladder don't come from bad decks. They come from bad tile placements. A cannon 1 tile 2 left will let the hog bypass. A Tesla placed too low won't pull the balloon. A knight placed too late will let the Mega Knight jump on your tower. These aren't skill issues, they're placement issues. If you don't practice these placements, every defense feels like a gamble instead of a guarantee. There are people who never learn the right placements, and this forces them to lose trades that they would usually win, which makes their game feel a lot more frustrating than it really is. So a general tip here, hop into a friendly battle and drill your card placements until they're automatic. Clash Royale rewards muscle memory, not panic reactions. Once your placements are consistent, your defenses will instantly become 10 times cleaner. Tip number 4, you're stacking support units and donating free spell value. People love stacking Witch plus Lumberjack or Baby Dragon plus E-Dragon behind their tank like it's some sort of overwhelming tactic, but one fireball or rocket deletes absolutely everything you spent 10 elixir on. This is why you need to understand what spells your opponent is running before you stack units together or group units close to the arena tower. I've seen players literally lose because their big push evaporated in a second by a rocket and they have no elixir to defend the counterattack right after their opponent defends their tank, which pretty much has no support units because of the spell. You need to be spacing your troops so you don't give them free textbook spell value. So a general tip here, always visualize the fireball radius when placing down units. If all your troops fit inside that circle, you're about to lose a lot of value if you play into it. Spacing wins games, and stacking units when they have a big spell in hand is never an option. Tip number 5, you're not killing the support troop first. This ties to the previous point. Every noob tunnels into killing the tank, but the support unit is actually what takes out your tower or melts your defense. A support unit behind a giant will do more long-term damage than the giant himself. An Evo Witch behind a giant skeleton will shred your defense into bits if you don't defend the witch or make that your main priority. I've seen so many players ignore the support units and then get mad when the next push becomes unstoppable because the same exact troop survived. So the obvious general tip, kill the support unit first, then the tank. The push dies instantly once the backline dies, not the front. Before we move on to the next tip, make sure to like and hype the video and join the Discord group, which is linked in the description of this video, where we talk about everything. Tip number 6, you're leaking elixir at the worst possible times. Leaking isn't always bad when nothing's happening, but leaking when your opponent drops a tank in the back is exactly how you lose entire towers. If they drop a golem, giant, or a lava hound at the back and you sit at 10 elixir doing nothing, you're giving them free tempo and elixir to build on. I've watched players freeze completely when the enemy commits and they panic defend with overpriced cards or make the wrong play completely. This is a general tip. attack. When they commit big, you must start cycling immediately to build your own defense or start pressuring the opposite lane. The advantage to cycling your defensive cards and then your cheap cycle cards is that you can get back to your defensive card quicker, as the cheap cards let you do exactly that. Don't let them control the pace. Match their tempo with intentional plays depending on what deck they're running. Tip number 7. You're using your big spells at bad times. A badly timed fireball rocket or a poison can lose the entire match. I've seen people rocket a musketeer early on only to get flatlined by the Mega Knight push moments later in single elixir time. You need to be assessing what kind of player your opponent is and quickly adapt depending on what cards you or your opponent has. Big spells aren't a feel-good play. They need to be only used when you can get a lot of value. So a general tip right here is only use your big spells in these situations. It kills a key support troop or building, it disrupts a huge push, or it secures guaranteed tower damage near the end. Anything else is wasted spell value. Tip number 8. You're cycling cards without any purpose. This ties to tip number 6, but a lot of players just start throwing skeletons, ice spirit, goblins, you name it, even a firecracker at the back just to avoid leaking. But the problem with this is that you end up with the wrong cards in hand when the real push actually comes in. Random cycling creates bad cycle if you don't know what cards you want in hand. You should only cycle to get a specific card, maintain tempo, or apply light pressure based on your deck. The biggest tip here is to stick to a particular deck for 100 games and see what cards do well when you have it in hand and which cards have a low risk when you cycle it. Make sure to take a note of this, as it can help you win a lot more games in Clash Royale. Smart cycling wins games as it creates a rotation where you have the right cards always, which can be beneficial both on offense and defense. Tip number 9. You're pushing into your opponent's strongest lane. If your opponent has their queen, bowler, hunter, or even a Valkyrie surviving in a lane, stop pushing into it. You're feeding into their biggest advantage. I've watched players lose entire games because they keep slamming into a lane just because they have some damage there. You need to be able to make that call to switch lanes if your opponent constantly gets a lot of value with their control cards, especially with cards like the Witch Evo, Bowler, and the Archer Queen. A general tip here, always try to push the opposite lane from their strongest defensive troop, even if you have a good amount of damage on that lane. You want to attack where they're not prepared, not where they're fully set up. This lets your opponent guess in and changes the tempo of the game, as they won't get that easy defense they get all the time anymore. Tip number 10. You're ignoring King Tower activation. King Tower activation is one of the strongest mechanics in the game, but players skip easy activations all the time. You can tornado a hog, miner, goblin barrel, skeleton barrel, and even some wall breakers to the King Tower for some massive defensive value. I've seen players lose because they never activated King Tower early and their defense stayed weak the entire match, even if they had a chance to make their defense stronger. Make sure to learn all the NATO and Fisherman King Tower activations if you have those cards in your deck, as it can be a lifesaver. Also, make sure to study every common King Tower activation. It literally gives you a third tower for the rest of the game. Not activating King Tower can be the sole reason which stops you from winning a particular matchup. Tip number 11. You're not recognizing your opponent's patterns. Players are insanely predictable, be it on mid ladder or even higher up. Some always lock the Goblin Barrel instantly. Some always Valkyrie the left lane. Some always fireball your musketeer the moment you place her. If you spot these habits, you can just go ahead and predict and punish them every time. For example, you can throw a juke barrel after throwing a couple of normal barrels, and this can throw them off guard, making them miss their log sometimes, which can get you a lot of damage. Small things like this is what separates great players from average ones. So a general tip here, once you notice a pattern, test making those risky plays. This is the best way for you to get free damage or a really good defense in Clash Royale. Tip number 12. You're letting your opponent control the tempo. Tempo is everything in Clash Royale. If they want slow pushes and you allow it, beatdown wins. If they want chip and you let them, control decks win. You must break the rhythm with light pressure or early disruption depending on the matchup, and never let them dictate the pace of the game. So a general tip here would be to identify their tempo early. This way you can plan accordingly and force them to make bad decisions, which can get you a lot of value. This is a very important point that every Clash Royale player needs to understand to win more games. Tip number 13. You're overcommitting on offense and dying to counterattacks. This happens constantly. Players dump 10 elixir on offense, deal like 300 damage, and then get obliterated by a counter push because they have 0 elixir to defend. Your idea might have been right, but your overcommitment is what lost you the match. Make sure to never overcommit too hard in single elixir time, as this is when players lose the match instantly, as you get elixir a lot slower than double or triple elixir time. This is a general tip that I've realized. Try to never go below 4 elixir if their win condition is in cycle. Offense offense only works when you can defend afterwards, and that is why you gotta be strategic with Elixir. Tip number 14, you're ignoring opposite lane pressure. You'll see that good players defend cheaply and pressure opposite lane at the same time when they get a chance. However, mid-ladder players over-defend one lane and give up all control and don't know when to press. This is why pressuring opposite lane when you have the cards is vital. Opposite lane pressure forces your opponent to split their Elixir and stop building unstoppable pushes, which is key to winning hard matchups. A general tip here, whenever you defend efficiently, always send something light opposite lane just to break their setup and their flow. Tip number 15, you're not securing chip damage when your push one breakthrough. Not every deck wins on big pushes. Miner, Goblin Barrel, Graveyard, and other control or even cycle decks try to get as much chip damage as possible. Control decks have such a strong defense, they're okay to take some damage and then sit back the entire game and defend. Cycle decks try to get as much value in single elixir time as possible, as they can cycle to any card they want quickly. I've seen so many players making big heavy elixir pushes that fail all the time instead of taking free chip damage over time. So a general tip here, chip is pressure, and trying to pressure too hard forces misplays on your side. Don't underestimate the power of small guaranteed damage. Tip number 16, you're not counting your opponent's small spell in your head. You must know when their small spells such as log, arrow, zap, or barbells out of cycle. If you threw a goblin gang into a pre-log, you misplayed. If you played minion horde into arrows, that's your fault. You need to be fully aware of what spells they have and understand if they're reactive or proactive with their spell timing. This can help you gauge whether or not you should play certain cards. On offense, the moment they use their small spell, you should find ways to punish that if possible and leverage that. Timing your win conditions around spells and counters can win you a lot of games. And finally, tip number 17, you're queuing emotionally instead of strategically. This one's a silent trophy or medals killer. Lose, killed, queue into another game, lose more, build harder, queue, and finally RIP your medals or trophies. Playing on emotion is not playing Clash Royale. You're just gambling your trophies. So a general tip here is after every 3 or 4 losses, take a 5 to 10 minutes break, as this will help you get into a better mind space and potentially make a comeback with your plays. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you want to know the best cards to have in your deck to skyrocket your wins in Clash Royale, click on this video. Bye.